All right, everybody, let's take a look at how to approach animating this assignment. So first things first, I'm going to open up Maya, and I'm going to go ahead and make a new project. That's just so I can practice good form and ultimately reference in my characters. So you don't have to make the project, you could just reference in the characters, but this just keeps everything all together. So I'm just going to click New, and I'll call it Jump Assignment. And I'm just going to put this on the desktop for now. And then click Accept. And then in the new folder that was just made, once I find it, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and put a copy of Max in the Scenes folder. There we go. And then I will save out my first scene just to have it there ready to go. So I guess I'll create the reference first. So I'll create a reference. Should show me the Max from Maya file right there. So now he'll be referenced in to the shot. And then I'll save this out. So I will call this Jump Assignment. Later I replace that with my name, version 01. I'll also call this Base. I don't usually animate in the base file. It's just set up and ready to go. So I will choose Save As, and I know it sounds inattentive. I will save the new version. That way the base file is always just blank and ready to work on. So version 2 will be first keys. There we go. So I'm now ready to animate, kind of. Before I do anything else, I need to create a camera. So I'll go to Panels, Perspective, and create a new camera. So far I've been making cameras for you guys for the most part. Now you can make your own. I think you made your own for the Lou shot though. So Animation Cam. You can call it whatever you want, but just call it something specific so you know right away when you look at the bottom whether or not you're working in your camera or perhaps a perspective view. I'm also going to click on this button here to make a frame. So I'm not getting much ghosting, so I do want to adjust the resolution and put a little bit of darkness around here so I know where the actual frame is. So I'll click on the camera. I can do it in the attribute editor right here, or over here you can select the camera button, which I'm not seeing right there. Same thing. Control A for the attribute editor. You don't have to do this part, but I prefer it. So on the, is it the output settings? Always forget. No. Display options. I'm just going to darken that mask so that it's clearly a frame. You could also play with opacity and stuff like that too. This is fine. So I'll still be able to see the character, but I clearly see where the frame is too. Let's also fix the resolution. So in my settings here, so this button, my render settings, it's going to scroll down and go to HD 1080. So that's what I want it to be in the end. So now it says 1920 by 1080. That's correct. Actually, does it say that? I think I got to fix my contacts. And then I'm going to need some more frames to animate with for sure. So I'll put in 100 frames. I can always adjust this later. And then down here under my animation settings, I just want to make sure that we're animating at 24 frames per second here. And the playback speed is also at 24. So there we go. This is a much better setup. And again, I'm just going to save this out. I might even save it as the base file again, just because I don't want to do that stuff unnecessarily. Sure. Okay, we need to do a little scene setup. So I'm just going to go to Create and make a plane, a polygon plane. And I'll just give me a good sized plane to work with here. And now I can adjust my camera as needed. That plane I want to put on a layer, so I'll go to Layers and Create Layer from Selected. I'll double click and I'll choose Environment. And then I'll hit the Restricted button so that I can't click on it. All right, so now I can actually set up a shot with a horizon. Let's also get a light in here so we can render out our image nicely. So I'm just going to go ahead and, oh, I forgot the P-plane, I should name it. So I'll call this ground. You can make anything you want, but this is going to be, this is going to work well. And I'm going to go and create a light. I'm just going to put in a directional light. A directional light is going to approximate something outside. It's coming in really tiny, mostly because Max is coming in really big. So I'll just set it up here so I can see what it is. I'll press 7 so I can actually see the effect, and then I can go ahead and adjust Max. So I'm going to go over here to my foreview just by pressing spacebar, panels, perspective, and choose perspective here. And now I can get a little bit closer to see what he looks like. I'll hit the number 7 here too. For whatever reason, once you reference them in, the lighting just blows them out. So it's nice to have your own light. I'm going to adjust this until the light on Max and the light in the ground looks decent. I might turn on shadows just temporarily so I get a sense of where the shadow is going to be. I don't want something right behind him. Maybe something off at a slight angle. Too long is going to be distracting. So something like this. Maybe a little bit more so we can see the face. That looks pretty good. I can also adjust the intensity a little bit, make it a little bit hotter, a little brighter, a little bit less, whatever you want. This is huge and in the way, so I'm just going to shrink it back down. Doesn't matter where it is in the scene, so I'm just going to put it off to the side so I don't have to deal with it. Cool. We're getting somewhere. Once again, I'll save over the version 2 of the file. I haven't done anything yet, so I don't really need to do more than that. And then I can, again, continue to adjust the camera. Now he's going to be jumping, so I want to leave a little bit of room for him to get up. I don't mind if he clips the frame, but I also don't want to be here and have no room at all for the jump. But it does depend on your situation. You saw some of the ones in the example assignments I showed where the character really didn't jump that high, which is totally fine. All right, so this is looking pretty good. Okay, so my focus here is not going to be on animating the assignment in front of you, but I want to go through the basics of how to think about posing. We'll do that first, and then I'll switch over to an in-class file that you guys can also use to follow along with me to see how to actually animate it. So as per normal, you would use your super mover to place your character within the scene. Again, I generally recommend against pointing the character straight at the camera. That really flattens them out. So getting a little bit of angle in here is going to give us a lot of dimension and a lot of depth, make it a lot more interesting, especially the closer you get, the more depth you get when you're towards a side. We don't want to be totally the side, that flattens it back out, but somewhere around here is going to make things a little bit more interesting in most cases. I want to keep the camera kind of low. It makes the character a little more dynamic. As we go up, it doesn't flatten the character, sorry, it diminishes the character. So I'm going to do something like right around in here. And again, I want to lock off that camera, so hit the lock button, and now the camera can't move, and I can really focus just on how the character looks within the frame. If you want to, you could adjust your horizon line to be more flat relative to the camera, or maybe you want an angle as long as I don't see a point in space. I'm going to flatten mine out a little bit, not too much, just get a little bit of life in there, and then I will restrict that layer so it can't move. Super Mover is done being useful. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. And now the last thing I want to do for setup is I want to create a key all script. So let's do that. So here we go. For this one, I definitely need all the body controls to be visible and all the facial controls. All these things have to be there. Oops, this is the environment and the facial controls. So I need all this to be part of this. I'm going to go ahead and choose my custom shelf. You can see I have a lot of these buttons hanging around, but I'm going to make a new one with you guys. So I am going to open up my script editor down here, edit, clear all. Remember, we want to start with clicking on something and then clicking off of it so we can get a select -cl command, which means clear. So we can clear our selection set. When you do this, make sure you grab all the controls, facial and eye aim and knee controls. So there we go. We have it. I'm just going to select it here, middle mouse click and drag, put it up on top and choose Mel. So now that's my my select script. I can run it as many times as I want to select all the controls. Really great for the dope sheet, by the way. Selecting, then you know you have everything and you can adjust your timing and know you're not missing anything. To do my key all script, I'm going to go ahead and run my select script, and then just on frame 1, I'm going to press S. I'm going to replace it anyway, so I'm not worried about it. I just need that set keyframe. So I will grab all the stuff up until select -cl, drag it up here, and we're good to go. You can test it by hitting your button somewhere else. Looks like we're good. I'll delete that one since I don't need it. Make sure you go to the gear here and choose Save All Shelves. Otherwise, when you come back, these buttons won't be here anymore. All right, we can now start animating, or posing anyway. Okay, we're ready to start posing the character. When I'm posing, I'm going to always be looking at how it looks in this view, the animation camera, because that's where it really matters. If it looks good in some other view, that's fine, but it doesn't really matter for our render. I mostly am going to be using my other views just to make sure that things look correct, that I don't have the character leaning way over, didn't know it. Those things can trip you up later too. If you don't have a perspective view over here or somewhere that you can click on really quick so you can go back and forth, just go to Panels, Perspective, and choose a perspective view, and you're good to go. So this way I can move all around my character, get a good sense of it. I'm going to turn off shadows here. I was hoping that would brighten his background back, but I think that's only going to happen when I press 5. So I guess I'll just stick with the lights as they are, and I'll keep the shadows on for now. So when you start posing, you want to really focus first on the root and the feet. Those have to work together, and then we're going to work our way out from there. There's no point in doing a beautiful pose in the hand and then later on change this to find out the hand's not even in the viewport at all. That doesn't really help out. So we always animate from the hips out, and the hips and the feet work together. So that's where I'm going to start. I want an idea, so I want to think about what the scene is going to be. In this case, the character, we'll say, is looking back over their shoulder to this side, and then something comes in from the front that they turn around to see, and then they jump. They are, as far as a character, they are a little on the nervous side, and maybe they're like waiting for the bus to pick them up, and they've never ridden the bus before, and they're a little bit unsure, even in this case, where it's coming from. So that's going to be my goal here, is to kind of... All right, a couple rules before we start posing. Just general ideas that are going to make a big difference in whether or not your posing goes well. One is be careful about hyperextending the legs. If your legs go totally straight like this, that probably means that you're pulling it too far, and you're going to get lots of issues. So if anything, you should go the other way, get some bending your knees. It'll help out a lot. The other thing is, if your character is leaning forward, you're going to want to push this control back in space. So back like this. All right. If your character is doing the opposite, is leaning backwards, your character is going to want to counterbalance by moving forwards until you find a nice balance point. Often it's with your head somewhere over where your weight is is going to create a better looking pose. So keep that in mind as you pose. The other thing that's really important is you always want to pose from the hips out. So we begin with the hips and the feet, get those where we want, and then we work our way up the back and head and then out the arms. The reason why is because you spend a whole bunch of time doing like a really beautiful hand pose and getting everything here just so, and you're just, spending all this time tweaking it, and then you realize from the main view that it looks terrible. Maybe at the end you adjust your hips here and it turns out you can't even see that hand and you didn't know it. It's a real bummer. So ultimately, if you animate from the hips out, your changes always work for you as opposed to against you. It's just much more efficient. Feel free to go between 5 and 7 mode to allow yourself to see the character as you need to. Okay, I'm going to start with the perspective view, and I'll just keep checking back in the other view to see how it looks, but it's a little bit easier to move around and manipulate over here. So that's what I'm going to do. In this case, the character is going to be looking, I think I said it in the last video, I'm not sure. I'm going to have the character looking over their shoulder when the bus arrives and they're going to jump, or when the bus passes them, or when something else other than a bus comes. I don't know. You'll see me switching a lot between world mode and objective mode, and then using these squares to move the controls. That's just because it's a little bit more efficient. It's a lot more efficient. If you press W and left mouse button, you can switch between world mode where the axis matches the world, or you can go to object mode where it is in line with the control. Use whichever one works best for you. These controls for moving, since they move within planes, are really helpful. Like in this case, I can move the foot anywhere on the ground plane just by grabbing this square, and it will always stay on the ground plane. You can't really trust using these quite as much, and make sure you're always moving around the character to see what poses you're actually getting. So I'm gonna put this foot back here. Feet that are a little more asymmetrical are always gonna be more interesting. This one though, I'm gonna toe in just a little bit, just because it's more of a nervous trait, is having your toes point in. I mean, it's interpreted as much. It doesn't really, it's not really true that that's your character personality. With your character's body, I'm going to rotate this over to get more in line with the feet, something like this. Keep in mind that your character is probably going to center their weight, but if they want to put their weight to one side, then you want to grab the hip control and rotate it away from that side. This will show there's more weight here than there is over here. So the control always slants down from where the weight is. So something like this. I'll try it out. Why not? I'm going to have the character kind of bent forward a little bit to kind of show their nervous nature. So I'm going to push them back, bend them forward just a little bit, and the remaining bends are going to come from these two controls, which, as I mentioned before, I like to rotate together. It creates a nice continuous curve in the spine. I know that spines technically have an S curve in there, but we don't try to put that in. That just makes it rotate terribly. You need to assume that it's already in an S curve, and now you're just telling that S curve which way to bend. So I'm going to have them bend forward and then adjust the, maybe I'll get the neck forward a little bit too, and then play with just cutting the head out and then ultimately looking back over their shoulder. I also want a little twist in here, so I'm going to set it up for rotation and just rotate the character around. I'm not clicking on here to rotate because I don't want the character to point at the sky. I'm just kind of massaging the character around and over. I haven't looked from this view a little bit, and already I realize I've rotated the character too far. So I'm going to, I want them to be looking over their shoulder. So that means my feet, I just took too far. So I'm going to put the feet back a little bit. And then again, check it from this view. The foot's not reading really well here. If I rotate it like this or out, I'll get a better read. I'm going to do it like this, just because it gives me a nicer silhouette. That's a little bit better. Now, I would definitely need to adjust the eyes. Right now, he's going to look at wherever this control is, and that just looks crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and move this control over here so he can actually see it. I'm going to rotate it so he can be looking at it as well. And then what I want to do is adjust it so it looks right from this view. Regardless of where this thing ends up, I need him to be looking, appear to be looking over his shoulder. So I'm going to play some different angles here a little bit. There we go. I'm kind of liking that. And then I'm going to hide the facial controls for now, which it says I did, but whatever. And again, if it's hard to look at, switch back between 5 and 7. This is better for the silhouette, but this is better for the face. I can fix the lighting later. I want the feet to be a little less symmetrical, so I'm going to do this. And then I'm always looking for opportunities for asymmetry and getting nice lines of action in my characters that makes them a lot more interesting. I realize I haven't keyed anything, so I'm just going to middle mouse click over here. Only middle mouse click to change that frame. If I left mouse click and there's a key anywhere, I'll lose my whole pose, which is really frustrating. So if I middle mouse click, I can choose any frame I want and make sure I don't lose the pose. I'm going to hit my key all button. That should lock everything in. And now that everything's locked in, I can put on my auto key feature and just pose how I want. So what I'm going to try to do is just sort of like a praying mantis position for this guy to make him seem, again, more the nervous type. So for that, as always, you want to do the elbow first, and then you can adjust the plane of the arm. I also want to get my fingers nice and relaxed. I'll adjust the plane more in a second. I'm just going to grab these finger controls, rotate them in a little bit, then hold and control to deselect. Oops, deselect the top one, and then rotate a little bit more. And then again, deselect the top one and rotate these a little more to get more of that fan on the hand. It looks a little bit more realistic. And I'm going to, and visually more interesting, and I'm just going to bend this arm down and now try to pose it in sort of that praying mantis position. Sometimes when you're rotating, you'll find this outer control is a little more a little easier to work with. It just does exactly puts it exactly where you want to go. So, but when I'm trying to get specific angles, I'm probably going to be, well, I'm going to use both of those, both the axis controls and the one that's relative to the camera. This one always will give you the most visual change, which can be nice. So, there we go. And a nice thing to do is watch your wrist. If your wrist is starting to like turn like this where you can't see it relative to the camera, it's nice to cheat the top of the hand towards camera and often is a little more visually compelling. Again, I want to keep checking it from over here. Going to adjust a little bit more so I can see a little bit more of that elbow. And I also need to remember to drop my clavicles just to relax his hand a little bit. That's good enough for the moment. I'm going to go ahead and key that everything in again, although it should be keyed as I go. I'm just being a little paranoid. And then I'm going to try to get the other arm in there. So we'll lower this a little bit. Same process here. I'll get myself a little bit of elbow. Don't make the mistake of not giving yourself elbow. You'll find out why if you do it. And then I'll adjust this hand as well to a similar pose. I'll be dropping that wrist way down. And now I'm going to do my best to lock this pose in. Again, keep checking from here. This is the only place that really matters. Just to save time, I'm going to say that this is getting pretty close. Professionally speaking, if you spent over an hour on a pose, that wouldn't be crazy at all. Sometimes people spend 2 hours on just one pose. For you guys, you probably wouldn't do quite that much. But you could and not feel weird about it. That would be actually kind of normal. So I'm going to open this one up a little bit more. Or actually, maybe he's a little defensive. I'll pull it up a little higher. I like that. Cool. He's looking nice and weak, just like I wanted. Just going to double check and make sure everything's looking good from all angles. Sometimes you get weird stuff in there. And I also want to make sure I can still see his eyes. They look a little bit high to me, so I'm going to pull those down and I'm going to push them off in this direction a bit. All right. So I can't see his eyes. I want to get some light on there, but for right now, this is looking pretty good. I can double check my shadows. Those are fine too. I like the setup. So I'm going to key all. Now, oh, I forgot to do the facial expressions. So let's do those really quick and then we can move on. So here, just going to go in again, a lot easier to do it from this view. So I'm going to add a little bit of lower lid. That tends to make people look more fearful. And I'm actually going to increase his pupil size. So I have a little bit more room to play here and they'll show up better in the main view. Going to have him frown a little bit because he's unsure. And I'm going to keep the lids wide, but not quite that wide. I don't want to be like petrified, just a little bit off. Maybe get a little asymmetry here by making one eye a little bit bigger than the other. Add a little curvature to the eyebrows. I'm making this eye bigger, so I'm going to make that eyebrow a little bit higher too. Maybe I'll lower this one a little bit. Maybe open up the jaw. Shows a little bit more of the mouth, get a little bit of shadow in there, a little bit nicer. I don't need to play with everything. I just need to consider everything. I don't think I really want to play with the lips at the moment. This is a good start. Maybe a little bit of a sneer there. All right. Have fun with it. Okay, I'm going to key all that in to make sure that we're good to go. All right, pose is locked. So spend some time on that first pose. And the reason why is if you can do a really nice first pose to kick things off, you're going to be more inspired to keep that up throughout the shot. If you do a really generic pose or, God forbid, start them off in the default pose and try to animate out of that, it's going to look really weird, like your character coming to life, or you're just never going to get past that and your character will be boring through the whole shot. If you start out with a cool pose, you're much more likely to continue it, and it's less work to continue it too, because I've already done all the hard stuff of posing it up front. At this point, I'm going to switch to the file online. I have a predefined file for you guys to practice with. Under here, in-class exercises, if you scroll down and look for practice jump, you can download this one. And the only reason why I'm going to do this is just to save time. If I pose every pose in here, it's just going to take a long time and it's unnecessary. I want to show you how the animation part works once you get your poses done. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. There's a new version. I definitely did a lot of work there. And I'll say first key finished. Cool. All right. Let's load up the file and we'll work from there. This is a slightly older version of Max or Maya, so you might see some different layers and stuff over here, but the controls are basically the same. I don't have a ground plane in here. I should definitely put one in. So I'll throw that in really quick. Just helps us see when we're actually going through the floor. And I'll just put that on a layer. And then of course lock that layer. I don't have any lights in this scene, so I'd have to add lights back in, but for right now, I'll just go with the default lights, that's fine. I do, however, I was gonna say I need a camera, but it looks like I set up one. I'm not crazy about it, but it's fine. I just want you guys to see how the animation part of this works. This should actually be all very familiar. So let's just look at the poses first. I'm gonna hit my select all button. Hopefully it works with this guy. Nope. All right, I'll make new ones. All right, that probably took me 20 seconds. Once you get used to this, it's really fast to make select all key all buttons, so don't let that part scare you ever. Oops, I forgot to add in facial controls. I guess I get to make them again. The nice thing is with the buttons that actually work, I just fix it. Again, another 20 seconds, no big deal. Nice thing about these buttons too is that they're selecting things even when you don't see them. So right now, my select all button grabs all the facial controls even though I can't see them, which is really great when you're doing your blocking. All right. So we can now see our keys. We have first pose, anticipation pose. Looks like the eyes are disappearing there. I have to fix that. The jump pose, landing, and follow through. So not a really impressive jump. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to fix that really quick. The pose looks nice and all, but it's just not enough height. So I'm just going to grab these controls here, and I'll switch to world mode and just move the character. Oops. It's this control and that control. So these three controls will move the whole character. So I'll go ahead and jump him out of frame a little bit. I could also adjust the camera. But either way, that's a little more interesting. I also want to play with my timing. So here I'm going to hit my select all button and go to my dope sheet or graph editor. And now I can play with the timing of each pose. So one more time, I'm going to watch it. The jump actually is pretty good. Anticipation's a little dull, and the follow through is a little slow, or a little fast for me. So I'm just going to quickly adjust those. Again, the jump is from here to here to here. I'm going to say it's good, but I'm going to grab and make my anticipation a little bit longer. So a little slower on that one, and a little bit of extra time on the follow through. Let's give myself some more frames to play with. And let's see how that timing works. That's a little more interesting with the slower anticipation. Definitely better with the higher jump. Good tip here is don't come back to the same pose you started in. Come back to something different. It'll be a lot more interesting. I'm just going to say this is good. I can keep tweaking it. Maybe I do add a little bit more on the anticipation side of things. Whoa, sorry about that. So here, grab the dope sheet summary here. Let's add another 4 or 5 frames there. There we go. Contrast and timing always is going to be more interesting. Again, the character isn't looking at this from my camera view. That's really important. So I'm just going to go ahead and adjust it a little bit more in front so I can actually see his eyes. That's way better. I can't see his eyes there, but I still want them looking in the same place. So I'm just going to pull it over. Anytime we can't see the eyes, it's going to be really freaky. Or can't see the irises and pupils, so again, just adjusting for that. All it matters is where it appears that he's looking, not where he's actually looking. There, something like that feels pretty good. Oops, I did that in the wrong key. No problem. I'm just going to middle mouse click on the frame I wanted it on, press S with just this selected, and I can delete this key. So that just copied it over like we talked about today. All right, so same thing we did today. We're going to do a pass on the graph editor. So in this one, I know that we're going to start and stop with flat tangents. By the way, if you see this extra key out here, don't delete it. It's really important. It's not in the new version of Max or Maya. It's actually one of the major reasons why we made a new version. I'll explain that later. So he's going to come down. He's going to ease in and ease out here. But on this side, I want him to accelerate into it. So we could actually add some ease and ease out here, but we're going to just try this out for now. At the top of the jump, probably a flat tangent. When he lands, this is definitely a flat tangent, at least on this side. This side is going to be more accelerating, at least for the main root control. I don't need to do this with every part of it. It's the main root control I care about most, but let's just see how it looks. And then ultimately, for the final one, another flat tangent as we ease out the movement. Let's see what that looks like. Not bad. Now what I want you to notice is that with no overlap, this character is really boring. Everything starts and stops at the same time and just feels really, really dead. So let's go ahead and fix some of that. So remember, after doing the graph editor, the first pass I'm going to do is just cleaning up stuff that I don't like. That's probably going to be the feet, just like with Lou here. That's fine for the anticipation, but here the feet actually launch up with the character and completely kill the illusion that he's jumping. So I'm going to take both feet, just the feet, and I'm going to, I could key another pose here. I could also just slide this. I didn't think about that before, but I could slide this until the point where he's going to be jumping. So that would work too. Same thing on the way down, as I want the feet to touch the ground first. So I'm going to grab these foot controls and slide them back. So it looks like right here is the first time they're going to hit. So already just doing that is going to make this feel better. It definitely needs more work than just that, but it's a good start. So I could have just left the keys there where they were before and then just added a new key, but this was actually a bit easier. That first frame after they jump off the ground is going to be important. And for right now, this feels pretty stiff. So I'm going to go ahead and hike up that knee. I feel like that knee would be a driving force here. So I'm going to do an immediate pose here. So we're flat on the ground, and then that knee is really pushing high. Maybe I'll push it even higher here as well, just to really give it that sense. Oops. Give it that sense that it's driving the motion. There we go. Well, maybe I want to delete a little more. It feels like that leg is still kind of floating up with the body. So maybe I would delay it like that, so we can actually see that knee rise. I could also take this left foot and just get it there a little bit earlier. As soon as I start doing this, it's going to offset the action. But now it feels a little too fast. So I'm going to put that back one. It's not beautiful yet. That's fine. Let's check out the left foot. His left. So he's going to come up here. Again, I'm just going to add in a little bit of movement here and drop the foot. Maybe I'll have this one offset by only one frame. So I'll have it get to the peak just one frame after the other foot. Oh, nope, I did that wrong. I could add a little bit more bend here just for fun. I think they need to be stretched out here too. So I'm just going to put an extra key in here. I'm going to leave this one where it is. If I were to move it back one frame, then they end up hyperextending. I don't want that either. So I'll just go ahead and put another key in here for the feet. So probably this one's a dominant one. It's going to reach the ground first. There we go. I'm feeling this action is just happening a little too fast. So this is a little bit late to be timing, but it's not too late. So I'm going to go and grab all the controls or hit select all, which would be better. And that's going to adjust the timing of the jump. So select all. Here's the jump right here. So I'm just going to give this a little bit more timing on it. So a couple more frames on both the up, oops, and the down. You can see the problem of doing this a little bit later in the game is I don't know which things are important and which things are less important, what's doing what. So it can get a little confusing in there. Oh, and now that feels too slow. Sorry for the foam going off in the background. So I'll just chop it back down to 1 frame extra. That's pretty good. I like that. Couple frames makes a big difference. Now the root control is going to be like our bouncing ball. I want that to really launch. So I'm going to select my translate Y, and I'm going to break the tangents here like we've done 100 times. And I'm going to get a little bit more of the accelerating arc. Now I might want to put an additional pose in here, but let's see what we get. So character comes down and then launches up. You can definitely feel the acceleration in the body feels a lot better. It gives a better sense of weight on the ground. Now I want to check my feet again to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So they're hyperextending here, hyperextending a bit here, so I am going to pull this up. Oops, I can't do that there. Oh, I need to pull this back. Again, the danger of timing things afterwards. That's better there. And then this needs to be a little bit earlier, or a little bit later. There we go. There we go. So now I'm getting a nice launch. And I'm getting a nice connection on the ground when I get back. The feet don't slide. They're nice and stable. The weight's feeling good. Nice. Let's go ahead. We didn't do this today, but let's go ahead and add in some, working our way up the back. I'm going to add in some delays and drag on the back. So as the character comes down, I'm just going to actually make them a little bit more upright so that ultimately they're going to do most of the bending here as they get into the final crouch. In fact, I might even delay it a little bit more. Delay. I could also accelerate it instead. So just to try it out and show you what it would look like. I could have that back go much more quickly, which would feel like it's being anticipated by the character a little bit more. So that might also be a fun thing, just by making it go a little faster. Again, that's just in the back controls. I like that. That feels pretty good. You can already feel the character is feeling a lot better. I'm going to keep going with the back. So as the character launches up here, the back is going to go upright much faster. So it's going to be one of the first things to go up. And here, I want it to be a little bit delayed. So I'm going to have the back come in here a little bit later by just grabbing these controls and sliding them a few frames later. And same thing at the end. I'll have the back come up a few frames later than the hips. So it looks like he's standing up at the end. It's a little swoopy for my taste. So this little section right in here, I think I'm going to have, like here, I'm just going to adjust it so it's already coming down in that direction. I know we've lost his eyes. I'd fix that later. There we go. So anything that looks weird, just fix it. That's better. That swoop at the end, though, is so fast for me. I'm just going to give it more time. And I could also make this a little bit easier to bear by delaying the last frame of the hips. So the hips come up a little bit slower too. So changing my timing a little bit, but all within the bounds of what we're already doing. That's looking better. I know the arms are really stiff, but we haven't done anything on them yet. So it adds overlap to the hips and to the back. I could also on the hips, so the hips are going to come down, come up, and then they probably would settle. So I could actually even add in an extra key here that I didn't have before, where the hips just come back down just a little bit. Nice little settle there. I feel like I'm Bob Ross suddenly. Yeah, that looks good. For this one, I'll teach you another trick here. If you know you're just like on one or two controls and you know exactly what you want, you can right click on here, choose tangents. You can't see it, but it's tangents, and then choose flat. And I know it's going to do a nice ease out. It still feels a little abrupt to me, but the idea is good. I'll just give it a little bit more time, soften it just a little bit. There we go. So we're getting good flexibility in the back, nice overlap on the legs. Let's keep going. So the neck I'm okay with for this one. It's not doing anything extreme with there, but I do want to do a pass on the head for sure. So I just want to add drag on the head. So in this case, just going to delay the head a little bit. Just that little bit of drag at the very beginning is going to make this a lot softer and feel a lot more flexible and nice. I could even delay it all the way into here, so at the very end he does a little bit of adjustment. When he jumps up, for sure, I'm going to want to create some drag on the head. So maybe just a couple frames worth. When he comes down, I'll add drag the other way again. Now in this case, to get his head to, so for us to actually see it swing, I'm just going to have to take this key here. I'm just going to drag it and give myself a little more time. In fact, on both these keys. So I'm just going to give myself a few more frames. So the head, you can see now, is coming in after the body. And then would finish after the body too. So that would mean the head wouldn't actually get into its final pose until frame 49-ish. See, now I'm getting a little bit of settle there. And again, I could add in some more delay poses. So right here between this key and this key, I'm just going to do a little breakdown in the head where it's still low. So more drag. That should give me a little bit more motion at the top, although I'm not really seeing it because the back is moving so dramatically. So I'll delay the head twice. Delay, delay, and the head can come up at the very end. In fact, I'll give this even more time to settle. Let's see what that looks like. It's a little bit too long of a delay in the head now. So I'll just take all this delay and shrink it up a little bit. There we go. Notice how much more flexible that back and the legs and how much more natural this is feeling from where it was before. All right. All I have to do now is the arms and we are good to go. I would also, again, I keep mentioning it, but I would definitely do a cleanup pass on the eye aim here. Like this is, I can't even see it. So it's probably better if it's more in front of his face. The farther it is from your character, the more the eyes will stay stable, but the harder it is to get them to look at it. You don't see it there. That's good. So now the eyes are more stable. Again, I know this thing's moving all over the place, but he looks like he's narrowed and focused on target. All right. Let's do the eyes. Here we go. I'm sorry, not the eyes. The arms. So with the arms are a little bit more challenging. Ultimately, we know we need to get them in and rotated in. I kind of like how the forms are coming in at the end. But the very beginning, what's probably going to make this look better is a little bit of drag. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of rotation here. Just going to do one arm at a time, and then try to put this arm a little bit back to where it was. So if I go back and forth between the keys, you can see it looks like the body is going, but leaving the hands behind. That's nice. Always watch your wrists. If your wrists feel really stiff, it's going to immediately deaden the sense of character. So it's going to cock them up a little bit. And then here, same thing on this other side. It doesn't have to happen at the same time. In fact, if I can make it not, that might be better. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and repose this. I can always change the timing later. There we go. Again, I'm just going to kind of put the wrists back where they were. Actually, I think this one I'm adding drag. This one's actually going with it. It's kind of doing one of these, which I kind of like. So maybe I'll stick with that. There we go. So there's my initial pose. That's going to create a sense of overlap right there. If I want to get a little more overlap, I could take all these controls here and give a little bit of delay to it. So the right arm gets there a little faster, followed by the left arm. Nice little trick. I could do the same thing here. I can make one of the arms get there sooner, just to add a little more overlap from the left side of the body to the right. So here, maybe this is that key. Maybe they get to that frame a couple frames beforehand. That creates some overlap there. That being said, though, I don't like them going up separately. I don't think. Let's see what this looks like. I kind of like them leaving together. So I'm going to put that back so they get there at the same time. But the key pose right here, I'll offset those. So I'm going to have the right arm and hand get there one frame later, and I'll have the, if I can get it, I'm going to have the left arm get there one frame earlier. So they'll be offset by 2 frames here. I'm just playing. If they get it there at exactly the same time, it's going to feel a little bit dull. In fact, I could probably overlap it a little bit more. So again, I'm just going to take that key pose at the top. I'm just going to make it happen a frame later. Maybe I'll make this one get here later too. So now the left arm gets there a little bit late. That little offsetting goes a long way to keeping things interesting. In fact, with your non-dominant hand, I could keep doing that. Keep making this arrive a few frames later than the dominant hand. And I just have the entire arm selected here. Looks like I could use another settling pose at the end, but hopefully you guys are getting the idea. Now you can see the left arm is clearly getting there late, which looks good. All right. Kind of like the head, I'm just going to do a pass on each wrist. I want each wrist to show a little bit of that drag as well. Sometimes it will lead the action like it is here. So here it's actually going sooner. I'm just going to do just the right wrist. I feel like I'm not getting enough movement there. It's going to add a little bit more drag. And I'm going to accelerate it a little bit here so it gets to the next one faster. Pretty subtle. Now let's keep going through it. So as the body jumps up, I'm just going to add in drag here on the wrist. So drag, and then it's going to come up. And then on the back side, I'll add drag the other way. When it hits the ground, I'm going to definitely add drag, also let it drop. So you can see here that right wrist hits the ground and flops. And then here at the end, I'm just going to add a little bit more drag here as well. That's too subtle. And then I'm just going to let it settle, really, just let it come out a little bit. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. So it's got a little bit of movement on the wrist that's different from the wrist, from that shoulder and the elbow. The elbow, is still a little stiff there, but this is going to a good place. I could also, to soften it, I could add another key on the arm just to have it settle down a little bit. Maybe even more. Feel like somehow it's not locking in this pose. It's a little dramatic. Again, I could delay this out a little bit. I'm just trying to get that shoulder to kind of move separately. That's better. And then same thing with this side. So add drag to the wrist here. I'll go ahead and do, well, I'll walk you through it. So I'm going to add a little bit of delay to that wrist. A little bit of drag here too. Maybe this one actually I swoop in a little bit. That's the original key, so I'm changing that. What actually would be nice here in that first frame is to delay both arms, because you can see they're jumping up with the body. But it'd be fun to see what I can get away with here in terms of just straightening the arm a bit. This is just adding drag, nothing special here. So instead of just following the body like this arm is doing, it drags first. And then it has to catch up. It moves a lot in between these two, but that's okay. That should actually be interesting. I'll add drag on this one as well. So in the next frame, I'm just going to let the arm stay behind. It's just going to force the illusion that the back is doing all the work. Let's see what that looks like. Gives a little more movement to the arms. I kind of like it. Let's finish out on the wrist. Notice that with these adding drag, I'm just kind of going through the animation and just putting the arms and hands back to where they used to be. As we're coming down here, I'll add drag back the other way. Hands don't always drag, but it's an easy thing to do and make it look good. Sometimes they actually lead the action. Here's just going to add a little follow through. Now the hands still look really stiff because I haven't changed the hand poses, so I'll probably go back in here and just change the hand poses a few times. Would make a big difference. I'm just going to let this hand settle out. Cheat the palms, to, the back of the hand towards camera a little bit, and then just gently let this arm rest. Now you can see right here that hand hitches a little bit. One thing I want to do on a lot of these controls is go through with the graph editor and do a final cleanup. So here, oh my God, look at this mess. Don't freak out. It's just going to be ease and ease out at the beginning, ease and ease out at the end, and all this middle junk here, we can just spline it and it'll keep a continuous motion. Sometimes it does weird things, but for the most part, that usually cleans things up nicely. I'm still getting that delay at the very end right here on the wrist. Partly it's just this pose is too dramatic, so I can just chill out that pose a little bit. And I think also it might be the shoulder, which is kind of stopping here and then coming in. So just making sure, I'm just going to spline all this stuff too in the middle. It should create a nice continuous motion on the shoulder and the elbow. There we go. Wrist is still moving a lot, but that's not bad. Just give it a little bit more time. Anything that's moving too fast, give it more time or move it less. So it's kind of your only two choices. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Again, same thing. I do a pass on all the body, just looking at the each individual graph and making sure that they're looking normal. So here again, adding in that flat tangent. I should just really do one control at a time. I'm being a little bit lazy here. And then spline the rest of it. This one ends right here, so I want to be a little careful. I'll spline all these, and I'll spline these individually. Again, to create continuous motion on the in-betweens. So that's what in-betweening looks like. If you do a good job on your timing and you have a good job on your poses, this will work out really well. The expressions, you can actually hold the expressions for a while, unlike the rest of the body. So if you want to change the expression, my advice is change it a little faster, like between like 10 to 20 frames or 10 to 12 frames, somewhere in there, change an expression. It works best too if you're doing it at the end of a movement. If you do it over the course of a long movement, we just won't see it. So right here, for example, I could switch over. I'll just do one expression change at the end here. So if I keyed the expression here, and then as he finishes his move, actually let's do it even a little bit later, and he changes the expression here, you'll see it. If you do it in the middle of a big movement, we'll just never see it. So here I'll add in a little smile. Now this is going to be weird because it's going from a flat expression to a real one. So it won't be ideal. And when you smile, you tend to narrow your eyes. Will feel more like a smile, and maybe we'll let's going to try to push it to one side. There we go. And again, I'll just key this here. So let's see how that looks. I can't even see it there. So what I would do, sorry, what I do here is I'd make it happen a little bit later during a period of less movement. Now we can see the expression change better. It's not a great expression change. I probably would work on that one a little bit. But hopefully you get the idea. So there you go. I know that's a lot, but I covered a lot of techniques there. Mostly it's a matter of going through and offsetting the action, delaying things, dragging things, or making new paths for things to go on. Like I mentioned before in class today, if you take a look at this, the graph editor is no longer nice, pretty straight rows of curves if you've done it right. We can still identify somewhere in here was probably a key. This was obviously a key. This somewhere in here used to be a key. I guess it's this one. But in between there, there's just now keys everywhere. So no changing timing, no fixing stuff like that. But the original structure is still underlying that and keeping it working well. Some things like the bouncing ball style will still be holding true. So this one here, that main one is still going to be just a bouncing ball because that's what we want to have happen. So you can also go through one control at a time to fix it, but you often don't need to. So there you go. I do want to take a second to compare this to what it used to look like, just so you can see the difference. Again, I'll Alt-1 to hide the controls for a minute. Nice follow through. Timing is holding true from the beginning. But look at the difference between this, which I'll save out, and the original. There's not any comparison. You know, aside from the height of that one jump and a little bit of that timing fix, I'll make it a little more fair. We'll move them up. But look at how stiff that looks in comparison. And with the timing slightly off, the difference it makes. It just feels kind of dead and robotic. Again, comparing that to our new one. Still the same poses, but with the better timing and all that overlap, man, it just springs to life. So there you go. Give it your best shot. My recommendation again for the assignment is don't go crazy with the performance beforehand. Doing the in-between takes a while, even with experience. And for you guys, it's going to take quite a bit longer and you're going to make mistakes, which is fine. So if you keep the jump relatively simple, maybe the character just looks and sees something and then has to jump, you'll have a much better time with this. You only have 1 week so to do the keys and the in-betweens. So be nice to yourself, keep it relatively simple unless you just have the time or the will to do more. All right, best of luck. I'm sorry I'm not with you guys, but I'm excited to see what you come up with. It is due a week from this Thursday. All right, good luck.